Are you ready with both the things?
Yes, ma'am. Prayer and vote of thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's start the meeting. Hello everyone and good noon to all of you. Welcome to our William Shakespeare Study Circle. Today we shall have a discussion over one important form of literature, and that is satire. Let's start our study circle with Lord's Prayer, and I would call our TY student Miss Sakshiba Jetwa for that. Sakshiba.
Okay, ma'am. Our Father, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. Lead us not unto temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sakshiba. Now I would call our student Miss Seema Sumania from the same class who will welcome everyone. Miss Seema.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaste, respected Principal Dr. Nagar sir, Honorable Head of the Department Dr. Ketki ma'am, Nayan sir, Urvi ma'am, Nandita ma'am, Tawal sir, and my dear friends. I am Seema Sumania. Welcome you all from depth of my heart. It's my pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to you all. Your presence makes us very happy. I hope you all enjoy this study circle program, which is full of knowledge and excitement. I welcome you all again. Thank you.
Thank you, Seema Ben. Now I would request our head of the department, Dr. Ketki Madam, who will tell us about the satire as a form. Dr. Ketki Madam.
Yes, thank you, Urvi Madam. Yes, hello everybody. Honorable Dr. Nagar sir, Dr. Tak, Miss Urvi Modha, Mr. Dhavalbhai Rajiguru, Miss Nandita Ghedia, and dear students. As you already know that we have learnt a lot about satire as a literary form from our book by R.J. Rees. But today we have a pleasure to show you the video on the same and thereby make you aware of the satire as a literary form. So today I would like to tell you a few things which I have gathered from different reference books. Satire, as you know, is a type of mockery. If we try to understand this word in Gujarati, then it is upahas or majak or mashkari, and in Sanskrit we know it by the word vakrokti. Satire is a literary device for the artful ridicule of a folly or vice. It is a means of exposing or correcting the folly or vice of people of the society. The subject of satire is generally human frailty or weakness or fault. It is observed in people's behavior or ideas. Generally, it uses the tone of amusement, contempt, scorn, or indignation. The purpose of satire is to create awareness and bring about a change in individual personality or in the society as a whole. For example, Aldous Huxley's work, Brave New World. In this novel, he satirizes most of the social conventions and institutions of the Western society. This includes religion, monogamy, and social equality. Huxley satirizes contemporary society in order to expose the arbitrary and hypocritical moral structures of his society. There are some common examples of satire in media, art, and entertainment. Some movies, newspapers, novels, poetry, short fiction, and drama do reflect satire or satirical attitude. Satire can be direct or indirect. Chiefly, there are two types of satire, Horatian and Juvenalian. Taking the names from the great Roman satirists Horace and Juvenal. In the first type, the speaker is urban, witty, and tolerant. But in the second type of satire, we find out that the speaker is a serious moralist. Horace himself described his aim as to laugh people out of their vices and follies. So here we find out that he makes it clear that what is the purpose of satire. We also know that political cartoons satirize political events or politicians. The best examples are, as we know in India, R.K. Lakshman's cartoons. In India, even the TV serial Office Office is a comic satiric series. You must have observed it, or rather your parents, I'm not sure, but that satirizes the corrupted and dishonest type of attitude of the officers. The movie Three Idiots satirizes the educational policy of India. Uh, we have learned in SY class, I just directly talk to SY students because the book RJ Rees, that is in our course, and you have studied this chapter in detail. So you also know that he aptly says that nearly everybody is a satirist. We all are satirists in a narrow meaning, satirizing from starting from our childhood days. We go on satirizing our mothers. Mother, you have not prepared chapati in this way. I like sweet balls, laddu, not of that type, right? So we all are satirists in a sense, and we go on criticizing one or the other thing. So this is how in detail we have already learned in Rees's chapter. So he talks about 6 great satirists of English literature. Number 1 that we have already learned, Dryden, Pope, Swift, Peacock, Huxley, and George Orwell. Of course, I know that there are so many students. They are also going to tell us some or the other thing about these 6 great satirists of the world. In English literature, of course, they are very popular. But I would like to tell you something about John Dryden, especially Dryden's Absalom and Achitophel. It turns Old Testament history into a satiric allegory on restoration political actions. In Gulliver's Travels, Swift converts to satiric use the early 18th century accounts of voyage and discovery, which we are going to see after a few minutes. Ben Jonson's The Alchemist, Molière's The Misanthrope, Wycherley's The Country Wife, Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, and George Bernard Shaw's Arms and the Men. All are satiric plays. And I think I have told so many times about all these things in, of course, short. This is how effective English satire has been written in every period, beginning with the Middle Ages. Girls, I think you know we have heard a lot about these 2 great satirists, especially Horace and Boileau. But here we are talking about France. So in France, the major satirists were Boileau, La Fontaine, Voltaire, and Molière. So just remember, try to remember these names. In short, satire uses laughter as a weapon. It aims at correcting and reforming the behavior of people. You have learnt a lot, and you already know that just creating laughter the main aim of the dramatist is to correct the behavior of the audience or the people. And here Swift rightly said, yet malice never was his aim. He lashes the wise, but spared the name. His satire points at no defect, but what all mortals may correct. So this is the quotation that tells us so many things about satire, its characteristics, and of course its real meaning. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot, girls, for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam. Now let's proceed further, and I would request our SYBA semester 4 student Maitri Thanki, who will give us the meaning of satire. Maitri Ben.
Namaste to our Honorable Principal Dr. Nagasar, our Head of the Department, respected Dr. Ketki Madam, respected Dr. Nayan Sir, Urvi Ma'am, and my dear friends. I am Maitri Thanki from SYBA English. Today, I am going to tell you about a meaning of satire. The word satire comes from the Latin word satyr and the subsequent phrase alenexa satira. Satyr means fool, but juxtaposition with Alenex the meaning to Messalini or medley. The expression Alenex etc. literally means a full dish of various kinds of fruits. Satire is a genre of literature and performing arts, usually fiction and less frequently in non-fiction, in which vices, follies, abuses, and shortcomings are held up to ridicule, ideally with the intent of shaming individuals, corporation, government, or society itself into improvement. Although satire is usually meant to be humorous, its greater purpose is often constructive social criticism, using wit to draw attention to both particular and wider issues in society. Satire is found in many artistic forms of expression, including internet memes, literature plays, commentary, music, film, and television shows, and media such as lyrics. Satire is a mode of writing that exposes the failing of individuals, institutions, or societies to ridicule the scorn. Satire is often an incidental element in literary works that may not be wholly satirical, especially in comedy. Its tone may vary from tolerant amusement, as is the word satires of the Roman poet Horace, to bitter indignation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maitri Ben. Let's have Miss Hiro Sadia from BA Semester 4, who will speak about Samuel Butler.
Honorable Principal Sri Dr. Nagar Sir, respected Head of Department Dr. Ketki Madam, Dr. Nayan Sir, Miss Urvi Madam, Mr. Dhaval Sir, and my dear friends, Namaste. Today I would like to say about Samuel Butler's satires. One of the strangest and most interesting example of a satirist negative utopia is Irohan, by the Victorian writer Samuel Butler, who is often referred to as Irohan Butler, a very different writer from Hudibras Butler, who wrote the satirical poem of that name. Butler's intention to write a negative utopia is suggested by his title because Irohan is now here written backwards. Judged as a serious work of literature, Irohan is probably a failure. It is too long and too confused to hold the reader's interest, and Butler never seems to be quite certain who he is at what he is attacking. It is, however, full of clever and amusing ideas, many of which apply to the England of 1972 almost as much as they did to the England of 1872 when the book was first published. The most important event in the history of Irohan had been the revolt against the machine. People had found themselves more and more in power of machines of all kinds, and the machines will immediately and the machines started to develop minds and will of their own. In the end, there had been a revolution and a general destruction of all kinds of machineries. This was recorded in the book to which Erroneous attached great importance, the Book of Machines, from which Butler pretends to quote long and rather tedious passages. The Iranian attitude to crime was not unlike that of the most enlightened and progressive thinkers of our own times. It was treated exactly as though it were a form of sickness. If a people stole money from his neighbor or made a cruel attack on some innocent person, he would be sent to bed and treated with great kindness and consideration. If anyone caught a cold or influenza, he was treated as a criminal. His family would be ashamed and his friends would avoid him. The same treatment was given to the people who suffered from unhappiness and or bad luck. Butler described a visit to the Iranian law courts where a young man, after being tried from the great crime of laboring under pulmonary consumption, was sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor. The importance of Butler as a satirist is not much that he himself was a great writer, as that the negative utopia of Irohan has had a considerable influence on all later satire. It is full of amusing ideas and the strange life and character of Butler himself. Thank you.
Thank you, Hiralbin. Now I would request Miss Itisha Joshi from BA Semester 4 who will speak about John Dryden. Itisha Ben.
Respected Principal Dr. Nagar sir, Dr. Ketki madam, Urvi madam, Nayan sir, Dhaval sir, namaste to all. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I would like to information John Dryden satires. John Dryden was born in 1631 and died in 1700. Dryden, the poet, is best known today as a satirist, although he wrote only two great original satires, MacFlecknoe and The Medal. His most famous poem, Absalom and Achitophel, contains several brilliant satirist protests, but unlike satire, it comes to a final tragic revolution. John Dryden has already been mentioned as a dramatist. He was one of the most productive of all English writers, greatly admired in his one time. He was nicknamed Glorious John. In this respect, he can be thought of as a poet, journalist, a type of writer unusual in the history of English literature. The most important of Dryden's satires is Absalom and Achitophel. His Absalom and Achitophel is regarded as not simply a satire, but a poem as Dryden himself calls it a poem. The central theme is temptation, sin, fall, and punishment. Absalom and Achitophel was so popular with the royalist public that Dryden and Nahum Tate, King Lear, to give it a happy ending, wrote a second part to it, published in the following year, 1682. For the modern reader to all, poem naturally has none of the new-like quality which made it so successful when it first appeared. It can still be enjoyed, however, it and successful thought to know without to accession of notes. Dryden wrote it when he was 50 years old, by which time he had complete mastery over the kind of verse known as heroic couplet. Verse of this sort, which seem to most English ears to be perfect medium for satirical wit and invective, was also used in Dryden's later satire MacFlecknoe and The Medal, both published in 1682, and The Hind and the Panther, 1687. This last, although in part satirical, is chiefly a philosophical poem about religion. The Panther being the Church of England and the Hind, the Roman Catholic Church to which Dryden had been converted the previous years. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Itishaben. Now I would call our next student, that is Miss Kajal Oredra from BA Semester 4, who will speak about Alexander Pope. Kajal Ben.
Namaste everyone. My name is Kajal Udedra. Respected Nagar sir, Ketki madam, Urvi madam, Nayan sir, Dhaval sir, and my dear friends. Today I am going to speak about Alexander Pope. Alexander Pope was a full package of contradiction, sensitive, aggressive, proud, lovable, and loyal. He was a great satirist and moralist. He stood to truth and moralized his song. He used poetry as a great instrument of moral improvement and believed that satire was his most effective weapon to destroy corrupt custom and to expose the weak. John Demnis, in his monumental book, The Age of Pope, remarked, "It is a satirist that Pope, with one exception, excelled all English poets. The Rape of the Lock is his first satire. Above all, he is respective of his age. He lacked his imagination power and depth of feeling, which from twentiness and a great poetry. He possessed our intellectual wisdom and wit. From what has been said above it becomes clear that the words of Pope refined, spark, brilliance, and rapidly of high order. He cannot be held guilty by introducing monotony in words. He finds greater life force in his use of heroic couplet than in either of Chaucer or Dryden. Hazlitt is one of the opinion that Pope was a poet of art rather than nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Kajal Ben. Now I would request our next student, that is Miss Shruti Dodia from BA Semester 4, and she will talk about Aldous Huxley. Shruti Ben.
Namaste everyone. Today I am here to tell you all something about Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley was born on July 26, 1894 in the village of Godalming, England, the third son of Leonard Huxley, a writer, editor and teacher, and Julia Arnold, also a teacher. The young Aldous grew up in a family of well-connected, well-known writers, scientists and educators. Like all the sons of his family, Huxley attended Eton, a prestigious preparatory school, and Balliol College, Oxford. His education then represented a privileged road to power for wealthy and well-born British men who sometimes displayed real brilliance. Huxley was among the best of them, certainly. In 1915, Huxley took a first highest honors in English literature. Huxley's first published work was a collection of his poetry, The Burning Whale, in 1916, written when he was still in his early 20s. Huxley further solidified his reputation as a satirist with the novel Point Counterpoint in 1928, a scathing study of the breakdown of commonly held social values. Huxley followed up with another satire, which would prove to be his most popular work, Brave New World, in 1932. Like his previous novels, Brave New World is a novel of ideas in which the theme the author wishes to explore takes center stage, determining the action as well as the characterization. Brave New World continued in Huxley's familiar, irrelevant fictional style, showing readers the absurdity of strongly held but little examined beliefs. Huxley's last novel, Island, returns to the theme of the future he once explored so memorably in Brave New World. Huxley won the James Tait Black Memorial Prize for Fiction from the University of Edinburgh in 1939 for his novel After Many a Summer Dies the Sun. In 1959, he received the Award of Merit and Gold Medal for the American Academy and Institute of Arts and Letters and accepted an honorary Doctor of Letters degree from University of California. The year before his death, he received the Companion of Literature from the British Royal Society of Literature. Huxley died on November 22, 1963, at the age of 69, having written more than 50 books, including one of the most significant of the 20th century, as well as innumerable works of criticism, poetry, and drama. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shruti. Now I would request our next student, that is Shrutiba Raizada, and she will talk about George Orwell. Shrutiba.
Namaste everyone, I Shrutiba Raijada and today I am going to tell you something about George Orwell. Who controls the past controls the future and who controls the present controls the past. One of the most highly regarded authors of the 20th century was George Orwell. What novels did Orwell write? How are his works viewed today? George Orwell's real name was Eric Blair and he was born in India in 1903. At the age of 1, his mother took him and his two sisters to live in England. He spent the remainder of his childhood in a town called Henley-on-Thames. He was a poor student in college and he eventually joined the Imperial Police as a part of this organization. He lived and worked in Burma, where he was responsible for the safety and security of more than 200,000 people. Orwell became best known for his two works of fiction. First, Animal Farm, published in 1945, and second, 1984, published in 1949, are both highly regarded works of fiction. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. This is a very famous quote by George Orwell from Animal Farm. Animal Farm tells the story of a group of pigs that lead a revolt and take over their farm. 1984 is dystopian tale of a society completely controlled by its government. It is viewed by many as one of the most influential novels of the 20th century. George Orwell died in January of 1958, the age of 46. His death was caused by a burst artery in his lung. He was buried with a simple headstone which bears the name Eric Arthur Blair. Orwell is remembered today as one of the world's greatest authors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shrutiba. We got to know about so many satires and satirists of the English literature. Now I would tell you something about one another famous satirist and his work, that is none other than Jonathan Swift. Gulliver's Travels, or it has another heading, that is Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World. In 4 parts, it is divided into 4 parts by Lemuel Gulliver, first as a surgeon and then a captain of several ships, is a 1726 prose satire by the Irish writer and clergyman Jonathan Swift, satiring both human nature and the traveller's tales, literary subgenre. It is Swift's best known full length work and a classic of English literature. Swift claimed that he wrote Gulliver's Travel to vex the world rather than divert it. The book was an immediate success. The English dramatist John Gay remarked, "It is universally read from the cabinet council to the nursery." In 2015, Robert Macrum released his selection list of 100 best novels of all time, in which Gulliver's Travels is listed as a satirical masterpiece. So that was about the Gulliver's Travel, which is by Jonathan Swift and whose movie we are going to see soon. Now I would request our TYBA student, Miss Sakshiba Jetwa, who will do the vote of thanks. Sakshiba.
Yes, ma'am. Namaste. I, Sakshita Jetwa from TY class. Honorable Principal Dr. Nagar sir, respected teachers, and my dear friends. It is my privilege to offer vote of thanks on this event. First of all, I give a really heartfelt thanks to Nagar sir. By his support and permission, we are able to make the event what it was. I also thank to Ketki ma'am and Nayan sir who spent their busiest time for us. And thanks to Guru ma'am and Nandita ma'am for their support. And I thank Dhawal sir to arrange technical facilities for us. I really very thankful to all the speakers for loading the occasion and sharing their thoughts. And also very thankful to all the friends for giving their divine presence. Thank you.
Thank you, Sakshiba. Thank you so much once again, everyone. Now, without wasting much time, let's start our show, Gulliver's Travel. And for that, I would request our ETRP Dhaval sir, who will show us the movie or short movie, Gulliver's Travel. Dhaval sir.